Hello, my name is Carrie Arnold. I'm the Program Director for Evidence-Based Coaching here at Fielding Graduate University. Welcome to our monthly Coaching in Context webinar series. It's lovely to see some familiar faces and names, both from alumni, current students, and faculty. This session is being recorded. We have a little over 100 registered. Some will be here live and others will be joining in the recorded forum. The session will be posted on the Fielding website. It is eligible for an ICF CEU in resource development. If you need that resource development CEU, please stay for the entire session live and complete an evaluation that will be posted in chat towards the end of the session. I'll put it in about 10 minutes towards the top of the hour. Again, my name is Carrie Arnold for those who are joining or for those who are listening to the recording at a later time. Welcome. We love giving back to the coaching community here at Fielding, and we're excited for this topic. This is one that's often asked about. How do we set up our practice? How do we do this? How do we be successful? And so Gretchen Hydo and I can't remember when we became acquainted, but this is her specialty. She is a master certified coach. She's a mentor coach. She is known as a coach's coach, and she offers a lot to the coaching community specific to the entrepreneurial tips that we often need in our private practice. She has real world advice, and she does this content frequently for the International Coaching Federation, and she has some of her own programs. The good news is she's not going to be PowerPointing us tonight or today. For this session, she's going to be in conversation. And so without further ado, Gretchen, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie. I really appreciate Fielding having me. And coaches, it's so good to see you. My name is Gretchen Hydo, and like Carrie said, I am a master coach, and my specialty is helping coaches to learn the ins and outs of their business development. The very first ask that I have is, can you please turn on your cameras? I am the kind of presenter that it's highly interactive. I want to see your faces, and we pay attention and learn more when we are active and when we're looking at the camera. It's harder to text and online shop when we have to pay attention. So you can buy that Amazon product later. It's so good to see all of you today. And one of the things that we are going to talk about is money. Money conversations. How do we have them? What do we say? How do we price? How to not take pricing personal? Money objections. And really the way that I like to do this is I'm here to be of service to you. So one thing I'd love for people to do is to be one, highly interactive, and two, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and you can just raise your hand and ask, because I really do want to make sure that we're having an engaging conversation. Sometimes I come to these sorts of things and I find them completely boring because they're boring, right? And I know it, and we've all been in those sorts of trainings. So we're going to try to avoid that today. So first of all, how many of you, just by a show of hands, you can raise it digitally or just like this wave, how many of you have been coaching for more than 10 years? Okay, a few of you. How many of you for 5+ years? All right, and how many of you are 0 to 5? Okay, so we have a varied group today. So nice to be with all of you. And one of the things too is, although I am an expert at helping coaches build their business, if there is something that you can add to the conversation, I never pretend to know all of the things. While I do know a lot, I would love if other coaches who've been here and have some experience, if there is something that you know you can add, feel like you can do that. So I just really want to make this a safe space for all of that and for our general conversation today. So we're here and we're going to talk about money. And one of the things that I have seen is that you go to coaching school, you get these great tools, you know how to coach, you get out of coaching school, and then it's like, oh, holy moly, how do I start a business? What do I do? And for a lot of people, one of the very first things that comes up is, how much should I charge? And people get really afraid. Anyone relating to this? People get really afraid when it comes to, how do I talk about money? How do I price myself? What should I say about money? And then we take it personal. I know that when I started, I was comparing my my fees to other coaches' fees and then deciding if I was a good enough coach. Anyone relate to that? Kind of comparing yourself to what others cost and then deciding like, am I good? Am I not good? What does this person actually do for that amount of money? What should I do? And we spend so much time in our heads about money that it gets us into this yarn ball. And then what we're not doing is connecting with clients. So the key to coaching is connecting with clients. We have to be having conversations with potential clients. This is one of the industries that I know people would love to have clients and they would really love to avoid having conversations about the money. Anyone relate to that? You'd love to have a full roster, but if you never had to tell anyone your price and they just suddenly paid you what it is that you thought you should get, and maybe even more, that would be the very best. Well, this is going to stretch you some because unfortunately and fortunately, it just doesn't work that way. So here's something that I really want everyone to know. Whatever you're charging, it's okay. And you're doing it right. You know, we really get caught up in the right and the wrong of it all. Whatever you're doing, it's been right for you up until this point. I hope that you hear some nuggets today that you can take with you to really help you build your business and maybe add to what you're already doing. So something I learned about pricing pretty early on is that it's all made up. It's all made up. Coaches can charge anything. So when coaches come to me and they say, what should I charge? It's like, well, what do you want to charge? Well, I don't know. What do other coaches charge? What do you want to charge? It is all made up. So I was looking at the ICF and trying to figure out what's the standard. I saw everything from coaches who made zero because they felt like they should do it for free to coaches that I know that make over $100,000 a year for one client. So that's not a very good way to decide what you are going to charge if you are trying to look at what other coaches in the industry charge. It's all made up. So the very first thing with this that I want you to do is to write down what is a number that you would like to charge that would challenge you to show up in your strongest coaching frame, and that would also call your client to stand up and show up in their most professional and ready self to be coached. Just write that number down. You know, and you can do it. We can base it on a 3-month contract. It can be something that, you know, for 3 months, I would charge this amount. Some of you might charge hourly, whatever you do, it's okay, but know your number. Know your number. And I want you to look at that number, and it should be a number that makes you a little bit nervous. Just a little bit nervous that you're not quite sure if you can say the number. You might choke on it, but you kind of want to say it. Have that number there. If it's not a number that makes you a little bit nervous, raise the number. You are worth the number that makes you nervous. What we do in coaching is not just accountability to make sure that people did what they said they were going to do. We transform lives. That is worth money. So the very first thing when you are a coach that needs to happen for pricing is you need to step in your professional self rather than your social self. Your social self is concerned with, do people like me? Are they going to be mad? Is this too much money? Well, I don't know. What does she charge? Maybe I should charge what that person charges. Am I worth it? Your professional self shows up as, I'm here to be of service, and this is the value that I'm going to bring. This is the number. Do you feel the difference in that? Okay. So I see some people like this and some people maybe. Let's just have a little conversation about this for a minute. I would love to hear, and coaches, let's not be shy. You are a chatty group of people. We are talkers. I would love to hear what's coming up for you so far in this conversation.
Doesn't it depend a bit on your target market as well and what they're actually able to pay? Like if you're working with a corporation or you're working with people re-entering the workforce or retiring or homeless or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jean. So it can, you know, I have coaches who go about it 2 ways. Some of my coaches decide what they're going to charge based on their target market. So let's say that it is underprivileged youth. They are probably not going to charge very much because that community cannot pay that fee. I have other coaches who their fee is their fee regardless of who they're working with, but they might create a special package for a certain niche that they enjoy working with. So let's say that this, in this make-believe scenario, that their fee, they charge $20,000 for a 6-month contract, and that's just what their fee is. But if they're working with these underprivileged youth, they have something special that they do just for that specific niche of people. So you can do it either way. You can do it either way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but the way I'm describing indicates some market research is required, as opposed to just ballparking a number.
You can and you don't have to. It really depends on, when we think about it, what do you want to earn? What do you want to earn? And who do you want to serve? And so those are the two things to consider when you're coaching. If you know that you would like to make $100,000 a year, then working with, I think you said, unhoused people probably will not get you to $100,000 a year, but working with individuals that have some income will, and you could do some pro bono for that part that your heart really feels called towards. So there's a lot of ways to make up the numbers. I know a lot of coaches who, now that we're all on Zoom, we coach people around the world, and our price is just our price. It's just what it is. So this is just my philosophy. There's many ways to do it, but this is just one that I'm going to teach you and to offer up to you today. It's going to stretch your thinking a little bit. And again, anything I say, take with a grain of salt. It's just for learning and for stretching, and then you can do whatever you want with it, whatever's helpful. Anyone else want to add to this conversation? Have a comment here.
I have a thought.
Linda, can you unmute?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Now I can, thanks.
Okay. So I have a thought that's coming up for me, which is how best to respond to potential clients who perhaps comment on your rate compared to other rates that they've gotten from other coaches that they've interviewed.
Such a good question. I'm really glad that you're going there. It's almost like I told you and tipped you off of where we were going next. So let's talk about that. The very first thing, and I'm going to get to your question, I want to talk about the setup. So you now have your number. You've decided on your number. You can change it later. This is just for our make-believe 1 hour together. You've got your number. Let's say that you're going to charge, let's just go with the $20,000 for 6 months. And just so you know, that's pretty average. That is a pretty average fee of what coaches charge. It's just kind of industry standard, even though it's all made up. With a lot of the coaches that I coach, they're between $40,000 and $50,000 a year for normal individuals. And I see it all the time. So you can take that number. It can blow your mind. It can feel too big. It can feel too small. The very first thing to notice, though, is what's your money story about that? Oh, it's too much money. What is that person doing for that much? Why would anyone pay for coaching for that much? What that would show me is that you need to invest in a good coach, because you have to work on your money mindset. And coaches should have coaches. If you are not investing in coaching, it's going to be very hard to have people decide that they want to invest in coaching with you. So that's kind of rule number one. Coaches should have coaches. Now, back to this question here that Linda has. Here's the deal. This is what we want to do when we are working with our potential clients, and we are going to get some friction back, when we say our price. I'm going to get to the objection part, but first I want to really show you what you do in the setup. You want to start with some kind of a connection call where you are getting some information on who this client is. I always send some preliminary questions because I want to make sure that they can follow basic instructions. Anyone who is not willing to answer 3 or 4 questions is probably not going to be a good coaching client. They are not showing a level of readiness that demonstrates that they would be willing to invest money into coaching, right? So it wouldn't matter what price you said. You could say $1,000, you could say $20,000, and they're going to say that's a lot of money, or I have to think about it, because they weren't invested anyway, or they don't show up for the call. So really make sure for you, when we're talking about you being in your professional self, in your professional frame, You want to make sure that you are setting it up professionally. You send this email. It can be questions like, what are you hoping for in the next year? What have you done to move towards it? How do you sabotage yourself from getting there? Whatever they are for you. But when the person comes to the call, here's how I want you to frame it up. It's something like, Linda, we've got 30 minutes today. I'm really glad that we get to talk. Let me give you a rundown of how this is going to go because I know that time is valuable. We're going to talk about your answers. I'm going to find out about you. You're going to get to ask me some questions. At the end of this, one of three things is going to happen. We might decide that we need a further conversation. We might decide that now's not a good time, and I might send you resources. How does that sound to you? And they're going to say, it sounds great. You ask them these different questions, and you're going to go deeper than what they say because that's a coach's job, as we all know. We're listening for what they're not saying. We're getting to know the deeper calling that they have, the deeper want, the deeper desire, the deeper way that they sabotage themselves. My linchpin question for anyone that's a connection call potential client, when they tell me their big dream or vision, is what have you already done to take action on this? If they say nothing, they're probably not my client. Clients that I work with, they're people who take action. They've already tried some things before they get to me and they're ready to go. So again, what I am doing is I am preparing people and I am sort of interviewing them with those questions, making sure that they have a level of readiness in the email, making sure that they have a level of readiness when I am coaching with them to see if I even want to go to the next step. So let's say that it feels like it's a good match between you and this potential person. What I like to do is slow things down. If they ask me, hey, well, how do we work together or what comes next? If I want to coach with them, what I'll say is, well, here's what comes next. Let's schedule an hour. Today, we were only getting to know each other, seeing if it's a good fit. And if you're really ready for coaching, one of my requirements is I like to coach everyone before we get into contract to really make sure that we're a good fit. And then I'll schedule that hour with them. I want them to see what coaching with me is like, and I want to see if they're really coachable. It's for me as much as it is for them, because if you're going to get someone in a 6-month or year-long contract, that's a long time. And you want to make sure that it is someone that truly has something to be coached on and that the way they show up is powerful. So you want to have some requirements. When the client, you're at that point in the call where they say, so tell me how you work, you want to slow things down. And you can say, I'm really happy to tell you how I work. But here's the thing. With everyone I work with, I have some requirements. So I'm going to give you what my requirements are. You can make them up, but these really are the ones that I use with people. The first one is, you have to be committed, because this is more than just about your finances. This is a commitment to your time. It's a commitment to change. It's a commitment to self. And only you know, with everything else that you have on your plate, if now's the right time to be making those changes. And then you're quiet and you let them tell you, well, I really need this. I want that. And they're going to give you all of their reasons. And you say, okay, great. Here's my next one. You have to be ready. It sounds silly because here we are on this call, you're asking me, how do I work? But you really have to have a level of readiness that shows that you are going to be able to support yourself during this process. And readiness is, who is this calling you to be? Clients say things like, I was born ready. I love being ready. I've been ready my entire life. Okay, great. Fantastic. Glad that you're ready. But you're hearing their objectives or their yes as you go. And what you're doing is, in this situation, when we get really nervous about money, you are holding your professional frame and you've turned the table that you're interviewing them. It's not about, do they want to work with you? Even though it is, it's about, do I want to work with you as the coach? Do I want to work with this potential client? Do I think that they're committed? Do I think they're ready? Is this a good fit? Let's say it's yeses all the way through, and they want to talk about pricing. You tell them your price. So let's say, my highest recommendation, and this is something you want to get that it rolls off of your tongue. After talking to you, my highest recommendation is, and you tell them your highest recommendation of what you think would work for them. This is not where you say, well, I have a year-long program. I have a 6-month program. I have a 3-month program. I've got a 1-day intensive. Sometimes I meet with people for 2 hours. They don't know how to choose. It's way too overwhelming. So you need to really be thinking about what would fit this person the most, and then make your highest recommendation. My highest recommendation is 6-month program where we're going to work on and then bring it back to their vision. What's that thing that they said they really wanted? Talk about that. We're going to work on whatever it is that they told you. Then we're going to uncover your blocks around it. We're going to take a look at your mindset. We're going to see what kind of a strategy needs to be built to support you to have that vision. And we're going to see what resources might be missing. We're also going to do an energy audit to see where you're spending your time. You're saying you want this thing, but what are the things that are draining you and keeping you from that? So notice I didn't say it's 18 sessions, they're an hour long, we're going to meet this many times a month. People don't care about the features and benefits. What they care about is, do you understand me? Can you help me? So then if they still are yes, and their body language is yes, their voice is yes, then you can say, and the way we do that is, and you can explain how you meet, when you meet, what that looks like. From there, I want you to be quiet, because the next thing that happens is they get really uncomfortable and they say something like, oh, well, now for the scary question, or now for the big one, what's this going to cost me? And then you just drop it. Tuition for this program is $40,000. Tuition for this program is $20,000. Tuition for this program is $3,000. Say the number that makes you nervous enough to show up so powerfully that their life is going to be changed, and that will cause them to show up powerfully too. If it's too low, people don't show up. I know we think that people want a discount. They don't. They really don't. People want to pay for value. They want to pay for the thing that's really going to change them. So now to Linda's question of, well, what do you do when they say, wow, that's a lot of money? Or I've talked to other people and they don't charge 1/3 of that. I say all sorts of things. Here's one you can say. I'm going to give you many. If someone says, that's a lot of money, you can say it is. And I wouldn't want you to make that investment unless you were 100% sure that you were going to show up to make it worth it. What would need to happen in your world for that to be worth it? And then they're going to tell you. That's when I usually pause and say, let's schedule a coaching session and coach on that. Maybe we can get that all settled for you right in one session, and then you don't even need coaching. So I'm taking it away from them the entire time, but I'm offering it up. I want to make sure that they're coachable. You can say, it is a lot of money, and I wouldn't want you to make that investment unless you were 100% sure that you were ready and committed. And they might say, I have to think about it. I'll teach you what to do with that in a second. They might say, that's a lot of money. You can take the approach of, for some people it is. I myself invest, and talk about what you invest in yourself each year for your personal and professional development. But this is where it's really important for you to be in the game. You need to be working with a coach. You need to be out there making sure that you are continuously building your own skills. We can only take our clients as deeply as we've gone. You can say, it is a lot of money, and a lot of times people aren't ready to work with me the first time we talk. So there's so many things that you can say. If they say, well, I've talked to 3 other coaches, they don't charge this, you can say, yeah, I hear that. I know there's coaches at all sorts of levels that offer all kinds of things. You really need to choose what feels right for you. I've had so many people say to me, that's a lot of money, or I've never heard of coaches charging this. It's like, yeah, okay. And I don't take any offense to it, because that's the part about not taking the money personal. I'm here to serve. If it works for them, great. And if it doesn't, no problem. So let me just pause there, because I just said like an entire monologue of many, many things. Let's unpack that. And then I have another monologue for you. So what are you getting so far? What are you wondering?
Gretchen, there's one question in chat around that intro session. Do you charge for that intro session?
Great question. Okay, I do not. I don't charge for the connection call, and I don't charge for the intro session. As much as they're for the client, they're really for me. I want to make sure that they're a good fit. And that's just the truth. The other thing that it does is it relaxes them. So when you say to someone that really wants to work with you, but they're nervous about the money, I'll say, you know what? I don't want you to pay the money yet. Here's what I want you to do. I want us to coach. Bring a topic that you'd love to move the needle on, that it would really mean something to you if we could get clarity. Let's see what we can do. And I don't even want you to think about the money right now. Let's just see if it even works for you. We're relaxing them. They're usually blown away that you are willing to give them an hour of your time and coaching. So I do not charge. The other thing too is if a client does say that they want to move forward, let's say they're like, I'm ready, let's do it. I always say sleep on it. If you're still a yes tomorrow morning and I'm still a yes tomorrow morning, we're going to contact each other and then we'll move forward, because you don't want a counterfeit yes. Other questions, comments? I know you're thinking things, just unmute and ask.
Are you aware of coaches who charge tens of thousands of dollars for a contract, later being sued for not delivering the value?
I've never heard that. I've not heard that. That's not been the experience in the group of coaches that I'm with. No, I'm sure it can happen. People can sue for all sorts of things, but make sure you have a good contract. And here's something else with that not delivering the value. The value is up to the client. Yes, it's up to me as the coach to bring it, but it's up to the client. You know, everything we learn about coaching is that this is a partnership and the client has to do the work. Our job in the coaching session is to help them uncover what they need to uncover. They empower themselves with the answers. We show up creating that great sacred space that's powerful without any other thoughts in our head. We reflectively listen, we ask powerful questions, we help them with vision, we help them move forward. But in my agreements with my clients, I tell them, and it's something that they sign and I speak to them, they are 100% responsible for their results. Does that answer your question, Jean? Yeah. Good. Okay. Connie, were you asking something?
Yeah, I've got a question. So how do you go about pricing for someone that is new to coaching, or how would you answer the question on price of like, well, you don't have that much experience or you're just new to this?
Yeah, great. Okay. So here's something that I tell all of my coaches. One thing I don't think I shared with you is I'm an instructor at a coaching school. And also I have my own coaching programs as well, where I really help new coaches with these sorts of questions. One thing to remember is all of us who are in this industry, excuse me, 1 second. All of us who are in this industry have been natural coaches our entire life. It's really the truth. Sorry, I have a little bit of a scratchy throat today. We're the people that in the elevator, when you ask, how are you, people really tell you, and you're like helping them. We're the people everybody comes to. So we have been natural coaches our entire life. And you can say that. I've been a natural coach my entire life. And just recently, I decided to get certified. Give me 1 second. I'm going to cough and hold on 1 second. I'm back. I stuck a cough drop in my mouth. So if it looks weird, sorry, I just don't want to keep coughing. So the other part is if someone says you're new, first of all, how are they going to know you're new? They might ask, how long have you been doing this? That will depend on how you answer it. It's all in your frame. When I was new in coaching, I would say, I've really been a natural coach my entire life. I had also been a consultant for a long time. And I'd say, and I've been in an industry where I consult people. But recently I figured out that I really have this gift for coaching. And so I wanted to make sure I got certified in it. And that answers the question. Most of the time, people are not asking those questions. If you set up your conversation with them in that 30 minutes in the connection call so powerfully that it's all about them, their vision, their wants, their desires, their sabotage methods. They're not thinking about how long has he or she been doing this. They're thinking, how can I work with you?
Thanks. That's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Good. Who else has something?
I think this is probably my inner critic, but sometimes when I think about charging good money for the services that I will deliver that would have value, sometimes I feel like at the end of the coaching sessions or package of the offering, what if I cannot deliver the value? I think that, sabotaging probably conversations sometimes happen. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking this question, Gloria. And how many of you can relate to that? What if we don't deliver the value and that we're nervous, right? So here's the thing. We know from the ICF, from the International Coach Federation, that it's a partnership. And this is what I was saying before. It is not all of your job to deliver the value. The client has to show up. And that's why we want to make sure that we are doing some things to pre-qualify our clients, whether it's through that email with the questions and making sure that they're ready, or that connection call, or your first coaching session that I happen to do for free, because I'm checking for a level of readiness so that I don't have a problem later with people feeling like there was no value. And then really having a conversation with them too, that, hey, I'm so happy that we're going to be working together. Let's go over our agreements. And I lay out the agreements. And one of the agreements is you're 100% responsible for your results. If there's something that you want more in the coaching frame, I need you to ask for it. You want me to turn the heat up? I need you to tell me. You want me to turn the heat down? I need you to tell me. But that this is a place you're going to advocate for yourself. Gloria, are you working with a coach?
Not at this moment.
It would be good for you to do that, because you'll realize the value just from getting coached. And you will also realize that your coach does 1/3 of the work. You do the rest. So that's the other thing, is that when we are coached, we realize what coaching is because we're on the receiving end of it. And it's really powerful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. These are great questions. Who else?
Gretchen, there's that question in chat around, do you ask for payment up front?
Yeah, I do. And so here's what happens. Let's say it's yeses all the way through and we both sleep on it. There's still a yes. They want me to send the contract and the paperwork. I'll tell them, here's what comes next. I'm going to send that over to you. We will get you scheduled once I receive payment. I get paid all up front. The reason for that is it commits them. When people do the whole, can I pay you monthly? Can I do this? Can I do that? What they're really saying is that they're checking you out still. They're going to decide. We're not a car payment. It's like, do you want coaching or not? Now, some people don't have, let's say, $20,000 that they can pay at any given time. You can decide then how you want to break that up. If you do want to do it monthly, if you want to do it, once in the beginning and once in the middle, that's completely up to you. But with the people that I work with, they pay up front.
One more quick question in chat. If you could repeat what you said earlier, you said that when people ask you how you work, there are 3 elements. Client is committed, client is ready. Can you remind us what that third one is?
Yeah, so it's committed and ready. Those are the 2. The third then is that we're going to coach together to see if we're a good fit. That's the third element. Yes. Carrie, thanks for running this chat for me. It's hard to pay attention and then try to look at everything over here. Okay, so Linda, did that answer your question? It was a very long way of getting there, but did we do it? Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So how about we talk about the 3 types of yes and what they really mean? How many of you have ever had a potential client say yes, only to be ghosted? Anyone ever have that? I've had that. People say yes, and then you never hear from them again. And then you're sending the email, dear Gretchen, just checking on you. We're not checking on them. We want to know, where's my money? Are we going to work together? You said we were going to work together. And if we are needy is creepy, and people can feel that. That's why you want to be in your most professional self. So you're on the phone, you're on Zoom with a potential client. You have done the, are you ready? Are you committed? You have done a coaching session with them. They say they're a yes. Great. You are ready. You're like, I caught one. They're live on the wire. I got a big fish. Be careful. We still don't know. You still want to have some parameters in place. So here's something that I do. Client says yes. Fantastic. I ask them, who else in your world do you need to run this by? Who else do you need to run this by? When we're talking $20,000 or $40,000, $10,000, $3,000, however many dollars, most of the time there's someone else they need to run it by. Who do they need to run it by? I want them to have that conversation before they're a yes. Here's the 3 types of yes. Sometimes it's yes, they want to move forward. And what it really means is they're being polite and they don't like conflict. They are people pleasing. They definitely need coaching around their people pleasing, but it's easier to say yes to you and ignore you and never speak to you again than it is to say no. So they say yes. And those are the ones that ghost you. Second type of yes is yes, but they don't quite have all of the information and they're confused. They're the ones that need a coaching experience most of the time, or they have more questions, or they're not really sure what it is that you're going to be doing. So what it means is that you still need to show up more in your professional frame to really give an experience of coaching. Coaching's not a concept. You know, when we talk about it's this many sessions and this is what we're going to do, that's nice, but you need to experience it before they really understand what it is. Third kind of yes is yes. They mean it. They're ready to send you the money. You know they mean it because the money is in your Zelle account. They've sent it. It's really that simple. Now, with no can sometimes mean yes. Sometimes no is one of those things people have to say no before they feel like they can say yes because they want to have the power in the conversation. It's like, no, I'm not going to do this with you. And you're like, okay, great. You know, that's no problem, but ask some more questions around it. A lot of times with no, what it means is I have no idea what you're talking about and what you do. I think you're a therapist charging a lot of money and this doesn't make sense because my PPO, it's only $60. Why would you charge this much? I'm really scared. I don't know if I can do this. And when you're asking me, am I committed? And, you know, does this call to me in a way that can stretch me? And will I show up? I don't know. What if you really knew all of my shortcomings? Can I do it? So they're nervous. What you can do with a nervous person, or when they ask you questions like, will this work for me? I never say, yes, it will definitely work for you. What I say is, I don't know. I don't know if it'll work with you, but I have a client who, and this is where you want to have some success stories. I have a client who came to me and you have a beginning, middle, and end. And it just happens to sound like the person that you're talking to on the Zoom, on the connection call, right? So, because people deal with mostly the same thing. So you would take them through this beginning, middle, and end. They came to me, they wanted more satisfaction. They were people pleasing. They were overly busy. This is the kind of work that we did. And now here's what they're doing. So a lot of times they just need another experience with you and they need more information. Something else that I see coaches do that really hurts them when it comes to being thriving in sales is that they're not thinking of it from a lens of service. They're thinking, can I get this one? Will they work with me? Instead of how can I serve this one? What do they really need? If you can change your lens to how can I serve, you're going to see your coaching calls change. And then slowing it down. I mean, a lot of coaches, they want to get to know you, coach you, and sell you all in 30 minutes. And then if not, they're going to charge you some money to talk to you again. For me, that's very fast. You know, coaching's a big investment. People could buy a car. You know, they could get coached or they could buy a car or they could take a great vacation, whatever it is. And so we really want to slow down the process. Think of how many times when you're going to make a decision, you might Google something. It's usually more than once. So your potential clients, they need a few touch points with you. So after that connection call, that's why it's a really good idea to have a coaching call that's just strictly coaching after, and to send them an assignment in between that connection call with you and the coaching call, again, to make sure that they're coachable. Send them a resource. What you never want to do is, hey, Gretchen, I know we talked last week, just checking in to see if you want to move forward. They don't want to move forward. They didn't contact you. The answer is no, they don't. You didn't show enough value. But what you could send is, Gretchen, I was thinking about you deeply this morning. And I know from our conversation that your big vision is X, Y, and Z. This is a podcast that I love. Listen to minutes 3 through 5. It speaks directly to what you were talking about. Completely different. They might email you back. Those are the things that we want to be doing to be of service. Is your name Alicia or Alicia?
You had it right at the first time.
All right, Alicia, nice to meet you.
Likewise. So, since you're talking about sort of, you've mentioned several times slowing it down, I'm curious about how you manage pacing from the perspective of the client,
Mhm.
because it feels like oftentimes there's kind of these extremes that the client base or prospective client base tends to pull at. Either people they think they're ready but they're not, and so they're resistant, and obviously there's a big space in the middle, right? But or they come to you with something and they want to move like lightning fast,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm curious, particularly with the folks who are sort of seem anxious and want to kind of speed ahead, or maybe they're in a sort of a crisis state about something. How do you manage that? I suppose it's a different form of resistance or a different kind of push, but I'm curious about how you respond to that.
Really good question. So the first thing I do is I stay in my professional self. I'm the coach and I keep my coaching frame. This is the way that coaching works. And so when someone wants to go really fast, I will say, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Let me give you an assignment. The next time I can speak with you is whatever that day is. Does that work for you? And it really is just a requirement that I coach with everyone before I work with them, just to make sure that it's a good fit. They're going to end up respecting that in the end. Now, that part of, but what if they go and hire someone else? Well, what if they do? What if, fine, that's fine. Part of what they would need to be coached around is their pacing. What's the urgency of it being so fast? Coaches are not therapists. We are, if they're in a crisis or this and that, go to your therapist for that. We're something different. We're all about possibility. And yes, sometimes people have that, I want to do it now. That's no problem. But we take a look at the urgency part. And I always really tell them, I want to commend you for that. And I really hear that you have that urgency. I can't meet for 10 days because my calendar's booked. If I have anything that opens up, I'll be sure to give that to you. And here's what I'd like you to do in between. So that's how I do the pacing. Now, if I have someone that needs to speed up, I don't really worry about that. I know that it's not always the right timing for someone the first time they speak with me. So I tend to check in with people every 3 months and just check back on our conversation. Hey, Alicia, how did it go with blah, blah, blah? We talked 3 months ago. If they're still thinking about it, most of the time they're like, yeah, I need to talk to you again, because they haven't done anything. So you can play with it in whatever way that you want. Am I answering your question? Okay. Who else? We have about 10 more minutes. I want to make sure I get all of your questions and comments in here.
I have a question for you. I'm wondering, Gretchen, if you could talk a little bit about when it's the company that's paying for the coach, and maybe the organization or the agency has a different way of approaching the fee schedule, the pay schedule. I'm wondering if you could say a few things on that.
Yeah, so I tell them how I work. So I'm very strong in the way that it is. I know that companies like to work the way that they want to work, but if they want to work with me, then these are my terms. And so we just come to that agreement. We have to be really careful of getting too social or too people pleasing, even when it comes to companies, because they might decide that they don't like to pay for 60 days or whatever it is. I get paid before the contract regardless. Once I have that payment, we'll schedule your people. That's just how it is. Now, the other thing that I do with companies is I will meet with whoever the decision maker is to find out from them, what is it that they want to see happen with their team, or whoever it is that they're giving me to coach. What are the biggest pain points? What would the win be from coaching? Then I talk to those people on the team to make sure that they're coachable. And I make it really clear that I am not the person to coach the people that you want to fire. Now, I don't think that's fun for me. They can hire someone else. There's lots of people who do that, but I don't want anything to do with it. If you know that you don't like Brad, you're really trying to get rid of Brad, I'm his last stop. I don't want to coach Brad, just fire him. It doesn't matter to me, so I'm really clear with those execs, those decision makers about what I do and what I don't do. And you just keep that strong frame. You still make your highest recommendation. And we can't be intimidated just because they're a company. Something happens to coaches when it's like, oh, but it's a big company and what? They're just people that have problems too. have problems and visions too. So keep your professional frame. We have a lot to offer them. Does that answer the question, Carrie? Good. Anyone have a live scenario, something that's happening for you right now with client creation or with your money stories that you're wondering about that you'd like to put out there on the floor for us to talk about?
So Gretchen, Suzanne just put one in chat that you might be able to play with. I don't know if you just saw the most recent one. I'll read it out loud. I've received some invitations to make a proposal from my LinkedIn service page. I have struggled with this because they want information before having a discussion with me. I have offered a free discovery session. How do you work with those types of leads?
I don't. I don't work with those types of leads. If you're not willing to talk to me first, I cannot give you a clear highest recommendation because I don't know anything about you. I am not a coach for everybody. Nobody is. And so I cannot possibly determine what it is that you might need until we have a few minutes together. If this person is not willing to spend a few minutes together, that already tells me that they might not be the best option for coaching because what they're doing is price shopping. And so if I really sent them, it's $40,000, to work with me, they're going to be flipped out anyway, because they don't know what that's for.
Yeah, that really helps because that was my inclination. I offered the discovery session. They said, no, I want a price. I was like, we're not going to work together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And what you can tell people is, thank you so much. I really hear that you'd like to move forward and you'd like to move forward fast. The way that I work is I get some background information on you first, because I want to make sure that I give you my highest recommendation. And if they just want a price, we're not carpet cleaner. I don't know how many square foot you're going to need of coaching. So I just don't do that. You don't have to do that, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who else?
Gretchen, this is potentially a strange question, but it comes down to perhaps a slightly different use of language. I'm not originally from the United States, as you can probably hear. And I hear you using the term when you say, when you encourage clients to meet with you so that you can get to know them, so that you can make your highest recommendation. What would be another word that you could use for highest recommendation if highest could be interpreted as my most expensive? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And okay, that's really interesting. I've never thought of it that way as far as my most expensive recommendation. What an interesting way to hear that. When I'm saying highest recommendation, it's like my most thought out professional recommendation for what you need. Right. So that's really what it is. So maybe if we played with that, the word calculated comes up, but that would sound strange to someone. My most calculated recommendation. Yeah. We'd have to think of another word.
My best
recommendation. So that I can give you my recommendation of what would serve you to your highest potential.
Yes. Okay.
Maybe
so
something
you're talking about serving to their highest potential.
Yes.
Got it.
Maybe something like that would work. Yeah. Better, but that's really, I love that you brought that up. I had never once thought about that. Thank you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in the chat my email address and my website for any of you who want more information, who you didn't get a chance to ask your question. Maybe you're shy to ask in a group. You can feel free to reach out to me if you want to be a part of my newsletter or hear about programs that are coming up for coaches. Let me know. This really is my love. I enjoy helping coaches talk about the things that we just don't talk about in the industry. It's like so secretive with the money and those sorts of things. And so I really like to make it that it's not a big deal and to help you with your client creation as well. Anyone else have something here that you're wondering? Okay, then let's hear this. How about you unmute and tell me something that you have received, something that you might take action on that you're thinking of differently from this learning today. What'd you get?
For me, my biggest takeaway is reframing to how can I serve? That's a reframing for me.
Yeah,
in terms of how I approach and think about coaching,
good,
at
good.
least in the interactions of money and agreements and things like that. So in the more process-oriented pieces of coaching.
There's a great book called Living Service by Melissa Ford, The Journey of a Prosperous Coach. It's fantastic. And it talks all about living in service in the coaching industry. Who else? What's a takeaway that you got today?
Yeah, I'm appreciating the authenticity. So, when we show up, our professional selves, our best selves, it's so much more authentic. It's not manipulative, right? And the way you were describing it, you're entering it into flow where you're interviewing each other, and it either is a fit or it isn't. And so there's no need for any type of manipulation. I think a lot of times people think if they sell themselves, they're manipulating on some level. But this really spoke to me. Thank you.
So glad. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? What'd you get?
Yeah, I really like that you take a very strength-based approach on this. So it's strength-based from the coach's perspective and from the client's perspective. And it just ties everything really, really together quite nicely. And I really appreciate the professional frame piece, the notion of, sort of your personal frame and your professional frame, and just, when to stay in that professional frame and to stay in that while you're having these money conversations, because that's really the critical thing. It's part of valuing yourself as well.
It really is. That's a good point, Jim. Thank you.
And adding on to what Jim just said, to me, it was when you said, name your number, and it should make you a little nervous. Because to me, I was looking at it from the other perspective that someone else shared of what the client can pay. But to your point, I have to be comfortable with what my value is. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Who else?
I think what I liked was the re-emphasizing, because I think we all bring this, we all learn this in our coaching programs about coaching being a partnership.
Yeah.
And re-emphasizing that, as well as the client's role in this partnership, and how they are responsible for the results, not you.
And that's the part, it's amazing how many people, how many coaches get stuck in this, that we have to create the change. That it doesn't say that anywhere in the ICF core competencies. And what that does is devalue who we are as coaches. The client needs to stand up and take the ownership, because when we're done coaching them, we want them to still have these changes. And if we're propping them up along the way, that's not helpful.
I'm an OD consultant, and so I do consulting in organizations, and I always come from that perspective in terms of I'm coming in to help, support, facilitate, but not to do. And so just kind of remembering that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So for many of you with these questions and things that you're asking, my roundtable program's coming up, and that's for coaches. It's a real small group. I cap it at 10. And it's for those of you who really want to go further and who you're being in the coaching world. So there's 10 individual coaching sessions and then 5 group coaching sessions where we build each other's businesses. My group from last year, they gave each other about $500,000 in work. So it was pretty amazing from what they did. And they got to really go deeper into who they are and all of these things, because the other thing that probably came up for you as we talked about money was your own thoughts about it, your own rules on it, your own limiting beliefs about it, your family story on it, what's polite. We have a lot of rules about what's polite about money and being well-behaved and respected and those sorts of things. We really are just dissect that in that program as well. And then it's based a lot on, what do you say to clients when it's service-based and not sales-based? It's really a different way to approach client creation, is from what can I give rather than what can I get? And I'm big into the what can I give? That's how I've had my success as a coach. Any program I've ever created has been on, what can I give? What can I give? What can I do for this other person? What would really be a win for them? And so for all of you, when you're thinking of your own programs, whether it's individual coaching, workshops, speeches, whatever else you might do, create something that would excite you, that would serve you, because all of our clients are some version of who we are. If it doesn't excite you, then it's not the right program to put out there. So I think I'll just end with that. This was wonderful. It was so nice to get to know this community. I really enjoy seeing coaches. You asked great questions. I hope you got something that you can take action on. And I always love, staying in touch with coaches. So feel like you can email me and reach out.
Well, thank you, Gretchen. This has been a gift. And for those who've put your information in chat, I will certainly forward that over to Gretchen. And I think one of the things that stood out to me, well, a couple things. The funny one is needy equals creepy. I'm going to definitely remember that. But I think you mentioned something earlier that we can't take our coaching further than we've gone in our own work. And so to your point around money and value and service and saboteur voices, our clients are going to come with those very same objectives at times. And if we haven't done our own work around declaring our value, we might not be able to take our clients as deep as they may need to go with this work. So thank you for that very gentle reminder. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this session up. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I put the link in the chat to complete the evaluation. We hope you will join us next month. I also put a save the date in there. We will offer this a different coaching and context webinar on June 15th on onboarding leaders and how coaching is well positioned for that. I hope everybody has a lovely Wednesday and happy spring.
So nice to meet all of you. Take care of yourselves. Really nice to see this group.
Thank you.